3 meals a day, plus snacks, is a cultural habit. It's a modern invention, not a biological command. Smart doctors and scientists disagree violently on what happens when you break that pattern. One side sees a path to cellular rejuvenation and a longer, healthier life. The other sees a dangerous stressor that can wreck your metabolism and mental health. Where do you stand? By the end of this, you might change your mind. The argument for fasting begins deep inside your cells. When you are constantly eating, your body is in growth mode. It's building, storing, and dividing. This process is driven by a pathway called mTOR. Think of it as the foreman of a construction site, always yelling, "Build more, build faster." This is great when you're a growing child, but in an adult, chronically elevated mTOR is linked to accelerated aging and the proliferation of damaged cells. When you stop eating, the foreman goes on break. Food inputs cease, insulin levels plummet. This flips a master switch in the body, initiating a state of profound cellular repair. This repair process is called autophagy. The word literally means self-eating. It sounds grim. It is the key to the entire promise. During autophagy, your body's cells begin a systematic cleanup. They hunt down old, misfolded proteins, dysfunctional mitochondria, and other cellular debris that accumulate like junk in an attic. Then, they break this junk down into raw materials and recycle it to build new, pristine cellular components. It's the biological equivalent of taking your car to a mechanic who not only fixes the engine, but uses the old busted parts to forge brand new ones. This isn't speculation. The discovery of the mechanisms for autophagy won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2016. The potential is enormous, clearing out cellular junk that contributes to diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and even eliminating precancerous cells before they can form tumors. This is the promise. It's a built-in renewal system, accessible to anyone willing to simply stop eating. That sounds like a miracle cure, a free biological upgrade just waiting to be switched on. But that cellular stress that triggers autophagy has a price. And for some, it's far too high. The very same hormonal cascade that initiates this beautiful cellular cleanup also floods your body with stress hormones like cortisol. For a healthy person in a low-stress environment, this is a therapeutic stressor. It's a challenge that makes the system stronger, like lifting a weight. But what about the person working 60 hours a week, sleeping 5 hours a night, and dealing with constant financial or family pressure? For them, adding the stress of fasting is like trying to go for a jog while you have the flu. The body is already overloaded. Pushing it further with food deprivation can lead to a cascade of negative effects. For women in particular, the hormonal system is exquisitely sensitive to perceived scarcity. A significant calorie deficit, or prolonged fast, can signal to the brain that it's a time of famine. This isn't a safe time to reproduce. The body can respond by downregulating thyroid function, disrupting the menstrual cycle, and causing hair to fall out. Instead of a rejuvenating cleanse, the experience becomes one of exhaustion, brain fog, and hormonal chaos. Muscle is also metabolically expensive. If the body is under severe stress and believes it's starving, it can begin to catabolize muscle tissue for energy. You lose the very engine that burns calories in the first place. The proponents of fasting call this a healthy stress. The critics call it self-inflicted harm. And yet the other side has its own powerful blind spot. They would argue that focusing on the risks of fasting for a few ignores the crisis facing the many. Imagine the average person's metabolism in the 21st century. It's a system drowning in abundance. We wake up and eat. We work and we snack. We relax and we eat again. Our bodies are in a perpetual fed state. Insulin, the hormone that tells our cells to take up sugar from the blood, is constantly elevated. Over time, the cells become deaf to insulin signal. This is insulin resistance. It's the silent precursor to a host of modern metabolic diseases: obesity, type 2 diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and even some forms of heart disease. From this perspective, the problem isn't that fasting is stressful. The problem is that our bodies have forgotten what it feels like to be in any other state than storing energy. Fasting is the most direct intervention possible for this condition. By creating a period with zero food intake, you force insulin levels to fall to their baseline. You give your cells a much-needed break from the constant glucose bombardment. The liver begins to burn through its stored glycogen. After about 12 to 18 hours, it turns to another fuel source: stored body fat. This metabolic switching from burning sugar to burning fat and its byproduct, ketones, is a core benefit of fasting. It improves insulin sensitivity more effectively than many medications. It reduces inflammation. It forces the body to become metabolically flexible again, able to shift fuel sources efficiently. For the 70% of the population that is overweight or obese, and the nearly 100 million American adults with pre-diabetes, is the theoretical risk of fasting really greater than the certain damage of their current metabolic state? The clinical data on metabolic health is compelling. There's a reason so many people feel a surge of energy and mental clarity after adapting to a fasting regimen. But this logic breaks down the moment you apply it to a different, equally fragile system: the human mind. The language of the fasting community can be unsettlingly similar to the language of eating disorders. Talk of clean fasts, of purity, of earning your next meal. The obsession with tracking hours, the guilt over breaking a fast early, the feeling of moral superiority that comes from successful deprivation. For a person predisposed to disordered eating, this is a perfect storm. The strict rules provide a framework for obsession. The control over hunger provides a powerful addictive sense of accomplishment. What begins as a quest for metabolic health can quickly spiral into a life-threatening illness like anorexia or bulimia. This is the non-negotiable red line. Every major organization for eating disorder treatment and research warns that people with a history of or predisposition to disordered eating should avoid fasting entirely. The risk is simply too great. The internal logic that drives an anorexic person is the same logic that a fasting guru might praise: ignoring your body's hunger signals in pursuit of a higher goal. One is called a disease, the other is called discipline, but the underlying mechanism can be identical. So, even if the cellular benefits are real, are they worth it if the path to get there requires adopting behaviors that in a different context would be diagnosed as a pathology? It forces a difficult question. Does the risk to a vulnerable minority invalidate a potentially powerful tool for the majority? This debate is often presented as a stark choice. You either eat 3 square meals a day, or you're doing 72-hour water fasts. The reality is a vast nuanced spectrum. A simple 12-hour overnight fast, which just means finishing dinner at 7 p.m. and having breakfast at 7 a.m., already provides a significant period for insulin levels to fall. Is this enough to trigger deep autophagy? Probably not, but it's a meaningful break from the constant fed state. Then there's time-restricted eating, like the popular 16-8 method, where you consume all your calories within an 8-hour window. This is more challenging, but has been shown to produce significant benefits for insulin sensitivity and weight management. Further down the spectrum are alternate day fasts, or the 5-2 diet, where you eat very little for 2 days a week. And at the far end are prolonged multi-day fasts, which carry the highest potential reward and the highest potential risk. Maybe the entire argument is framed incorrectly. Perhaps the question isn't, should I fast, but what is the minimum effective dose of metabolic rest my body needs? Maybe a 14-hour fast gives you 80% of the benefits, with only 10% of the risks associated with more extreme protocols. The human body is an adaptation machine. It responds to the signals it's given. If the signal is constant food availability, it adapts to store fat efficiently. If the signal includes periodic absence of food, it adapts by upregulating repair pathways and becoming more efficient at using stored fuel. The core tension is right here. Fasting is a tool for applying a controlled, therapeutic stress. The goal is to apply just enough stress to trigger a positive adaptation without applying so much that the system breaks. This leads back to the fundamental conflict. One side sees a powerful, ancestral key to unlocking cellular health, a way to fight back against the diseases of modern abundance. They see a blade that can carefully prune away the dead wood of cellular aging. The other side sees that same blade and worries about the millions of people who are unprepared to wield it, who will cut themselves deeply in pursuit of a promised purity. They point to the real risks of hormonal disruption, nutrient deficiencies, and the dark psychological parallel with eating disorders. Both sides are looking at the same tool. They just can't agree on who is qualified to use it. So the science shows clear mechanisms for both rejuvenation and harm. The data on metabolic improvement is real. The psychological risks are also profoundly real. Fasting forces you to confront the difference between discipline and punishment. between a therapeutic stress and a destructive obsession. Where do you draw that line? And how would you know when you've crossed it?